Hey guys, this is Miss Hall again, and we're going to continue working on our reading lesson using informational text that deals with first-hand and second-hand accounts. So if you remember yesterday, we reviewed what a first-hand and a second-hand account was. So if you look at this anchor chart, a first-hand account is a description of an event that comes from someone who was actually there to see or experience it. Okay, so somebody that was actually there, and we use the Titanic as an example. Somebody that was actually on the ship and survived and writes down their story, that is a first-hand account. Today, we're going to focus, though, on a second-hand account. A second-hand account is a secondary source. It is a description of an event based on research. A description of an event given by someone who was not there to actually see the event occur. It may include key facts and information from the event. It may include information from several different sources. And typically, the details are told from the third person point of view, which means you will hear the author use he, she, and they, whereas a first hand will use I or we. Types of text that are used in secondhand accounts are encyclopedias, textbooks, biographies, other kind of books, movies, newspaper and magazine articles. Basically, what happens in a secondhand account, the author has to do research and learn about the topic. So we've mentioned Titanic. So if you were to go online, research and learn information about the Titanic, and then write a paragraph about what you learned, that would be a secondhand account. So we're going to go back to our passage from yesterday. Yesterday we read a passage by Sally Ride called From to Space and Back. And we learned about her launch into space. And it was a first-hand account because she wrote it. Today, we're going to read a second-hand account of the exact same space shuttle launch. But this time, it was written by John Noble Wilford from the newspaper The New York Times on June 19th, 1983. So he was not on board the space shuttle, and he has information about what happened, and he's writing about it. So it is a second-hand account. So let's get started. Four men and a woman, the first American woman to go into space, rocketed into orbit today aboard the Space Shuttle Challenger and then launched the first of two satellites in the successful beginning of a busy 6-day mission. What set this flight apart from the 36 other manned American space missions over the last 22 years was not the cargo, but the occupant just behind the two pilots. She was Dr. Sally K. Ride, a 32-year-old physicist who has been in astronaut training since 1978. She is the third woman to fly in space, but the first on an American mission. A crowd estimated at 250,000 stood in the bright morning sun to watch the seventh shuttle launching, and many of them wore Ride, Sally Ride t-shirts. In the ascent, as the spaceship climbed toward a 184-mile high orbit, Rod could be heard in her role as a flight engineer, calling out checklists in a clear, businesslike voice. Then, relaxing somewhat as the Challenger approached orbit, Ride radioed Mission Control, "See you Friday," referring to the crew's planned landing here at the Kennedy Space Center. This would be the first time a shuttle has been brought back to the 3-mile runway at its launching base. And like any other astronaut after his or her first ascent into orbit, Ride sought to give expression to the thrill of a first flight. "Have you ever been to Disneyland?" she asked Roy Bridges, the astronaut acting as the crew communicator at Mission Control. "Affirmative," replied Mr. Bridges. "This is definitely an e-ticket," Dr. Rod remarked, referring to a ticket that the amusement park used to have for admission to the best rides, including the Super Roller Coaster. Okay, so we've read two accounts now, first-hand and a second-hand account. What was different about this account? Well, I noticed that instead of saying, referring to Sally herself and we are on the shuttle, it was talking about them. It says she down here, um, 4 men and a woman. She didn't say us or we. She again right here. So it's not telling this in the point of view of Sally Ride telling the story. It's told from somebody else who researched or watched this space shuttle go up. So if you look at the questions at the bottom, it says which information is in Sally Ride's account but not in John Noble Wilford's. So look at your four choices. A, what rockets and engines sound like during a launch. B, who rides the space shuttle with astronaut Sally Ride? C, how long this particular space mission will take. D, how astronauts communicate with mission control. What do you think the answer is? Well, if you look at A, what rockets and engines sound like during a launch. Sally Ride's account did talk about that up here, whereas because she's actually experiencing it. John Noble Wilford, he's just a reporter or somebody writing about it. He didn't experience what it sounded like or even what it felt like. So A could be a difference, but let's check the rest. B, who rides the space shuttle with astronaut Sally Ride? Well, we know other people ride with her in her first-hand account, but she never mentioned who it was. But over here, John Noble Wilford, he tells us it was 4 men and a woman. But the question is, which information is in Sally Ride's account? B was in John Noble Wilford's account, so it cannot be B. C, how long this particular space mission will take. The only thing I really recall is it did say, launch is 8.5 minutes, but I don't see anything that really tells me how long they're planning on being up there. Oh, I take that back right here. Beginning of a busy 6-day mission. But again, that's in John Noble Wilford's account, not Sally Ride's. And we want which is in Sally Ride's account. So it can't be C. D, how astronauts communicate with mission control. Well, it talks about them communicating, but it never explains how. So D would not work. So our best answer is letter A. Okay, look at number 2. Which of these best describes the difference in focus between the accounts? All right, so let's look at this one at a time. A, first one, which was Sally Ride, focuses on the first 8.5 minutes of the launch. Wilford focuses on the entire mission from beginning to end. Now, Sally Ride's first-hand account did focus on the first beginning parts of the mission, but Wilford's did not go from beginning to end. So A would not work. B, Ride focuses on how the human body responds to being in space. Wilford focuses on how human beings respond to being lonely in space. Well, Sally Ride did talk about, as they were going up, how all these G-forces and things were affecting them and her body. But Wilford didn't talk about being lonely, so B wouldn't work. C, Ride focuses on what it feels like to go into space. She does. Wilford focuses on why a ride going into space is an important event in history. And that's true because if you look back, tells you right here, she was Dr. Sally Ride, a 32-year-old physicist who has been an astronaut in training since 1978. She is the third woman to fly in space, but she's the first on an American mission. So that tells you why it was an important event in history. So C, woodwork, is the answer. But let's double check D. Ride focuses on the importance of being the first American woman to go into space. Sally Ride never even mentioned that. So that part wouldn't work. Wilford focuses on the importance of Ride's scientific mission. Um, he was talking about the importance of her being the first one on that American mission. So actually, D, it doesn't work at all. Okay, so now look at the last question, number 3. Look at the table below. It contains sentences from the two passages. So, from to space and back is the first-hand account by Sally Ride, and the little excerpt from it says, during the next few minutes, the empty fuel tank drops away and falls to Earth, and we are very busy getting the shuttle ready to enter orbit. But we're not too busy to notice that our books and pencils are floating in midair. We're in space. The second one, little excerpt right here, is from the article we just read, and it's the second-hand account. It says, in the ascent, as the spaceship climbed toward an 184 high orbit, Rod could be heard in her role as a flight engineer calling out checklists in a clear, businesslike voice. So look at the question. Describe one way the information in Wright's sentences differs from that found in Wilford's sentences. Use two details from the sentences in your answer. All right, well, look at this. How are they different? Well, first thing I notice is Sally Ride talks about we're in space. She's referring to her and her fellow astronauts. Whereas over here, the author is saying, Ride, he's calling her out, like by her name, and he'll say her role. Whereas over here, if you took the same one, Sally would have said my role. Another difference in the two sentences, she's talking about over here, the things that she's noticing, the things that she does. And over here, she's actually telling what she's doing. Whereas over here, he refers to Sally Ride talking, I guess, through her speaker, and calling out the things that she's doing. Whereas over here, she's writing about the things she did as she did them. Okay? All right, so remember, a first-hand account is from somebody who actually experienced the event that's being written about. And a second-hand account is somebody who had to research, who did not experience the event in the same way. So be ready tomorrow. I will be giving you an assignment that you're going to use both of the passages in order to complete. So I will talk to you guys tomorrow.